This time on Watchers of Tomorrow, and now you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you with here that sad face upon your face.
Hello, welcome to Watchers of Tomorrow, the sci-fi review and critique show where we're putting the humanities back into science fiction. I am Gepwin, and I'm joined, as always, by my friend and co-host, Dr. Izix.
Hi.
Calling me surprised, as we got another pretty good episode.
It's kind of, there's elements that are very, already been kind of done in Star Trek already, but it all kind of came together pretty well, so.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's got a little bit, like, they rush the ending, as always, because for some reason I don't know how they always manage to make this era of television both drag and be rushed.
Well, it's like they're like, okay, we're about 20 minutes into our episode here. We have how much time left? Uh-oh.
So this episode is called The Survivor.
Mm-hmm. Hence my music choice there at the cold open.
It was written by James Shermer, who this is his first Star Trek credit, but he's been a producer and editor, writer, been all over TV, done stuff for the Mod Squad, Starsky and Hutch, $6 Million Man, Fantasy Island, MacGyver, all the things.
Actually his only Star Trek credit, if I recall.
Yes. And possibly his only animation thing as well. It's hard to tell.
Well, we got a run-of-the-mill TV writer giving us a pretty good episode, so hooray!
And also, we have a guest star.
Holy smokes! Who's our mysterious guest star here?
So we have Ted Knight playing Carter Winston, asterisk. We'll get to that.
Yes.
He's best known for later being on The Mary Tyler Moore Show and Caddyshack.
Yes, he was also on The Love Boat as like a bunch of different people.
So an actual name, they have somebody who we like you would have heard of, which is interesting for the animated series. Like they used to do that in the original series several times, but the animated series they usually just don't bother.
Yes, though there is kind of something funky going on because I don't think he's like properly listed in the credits.
Oh. Yeah, probably something
surprise
weird.
Guest star.
Also, just to say, they introduce a new crew member in this episode. I use introduce very loosely to like replace Uhura because they have Nicole Nichols voicing someone else.
Yes.
So I guess she's technically a guest star, sort of.
Well, she'll pop up more later, but Lieutenant Maress, correct?
Yes, the cat girl.
Yes. A big floofy mane on her, and she's kind of orangish.
Yep, has a tail, works as comm officer. You've seen pictures of her because she's the Star Trek cat girl. She just shows up. Like, Kirk just turns around and goes, Lieutenant Maress, and then there's a cat woman. It's like, oh, okay.
Yes. Well, I guess she's always been there. Just we've never noticed her until now.
Yeah, she's on the opposite shift as Uhura, so.
Yes.
All right, we should jump in. I don't know what we're actually going to talk about with this one, but there's a story here so that we can follow.
A few things, but yeah, let's go get into things here.
The Enterprise is patrolling the Romulan neutral zone again when they find a small one-man craft that's been hit by a meteor swarm.
I'm having flashbacks to The Expanse here. I'll avoid the spoilers.
I was really curious whether they just made up a dumb word, so I wanted to see if a meteor swarm is a thing. And in fact, it's a 9th level sorcerer spell that does 20d6 fire and 20d6 bludgeoning damage after a failed dex roll.
Hooray! I plan to get that later.
That would really screw up a ship, though. It's like...
Yes. It's like, well, there's all this rock and fire everywhere. Oh no.
They identified the ship as being registered to one Carter Winston, who... everyone knows, apparently, and has been missing for about 5 years.
You mean you don't know who Carter Winston is, Gepwin? Where have you been?
Under a space rock. Under one of these meteor swarms.
Yes. By the way, just sort of a thing I always have to mention this occasionally. A meteor is a space rock that is entering an atmosphere of a planet.
What about if it's entering the atmosphere of a ship?
then it's just an asteroid impact. Whoops. Anyway.
So they beam this dude aboard, and they all immediately recognize him as the super rich philanthropist who swoops in to save Federation planets from food shortages and other such things.
So, 2 notes. First off, this guy has magnificent mustache.
That he does.
And second of all, he really should have been around during that one, a famine on that one planet to have the guy went crazy and end up becoming a Shakespearean actor later.
That's true.
He would have come. Yeah, he could have come in handy back then, but apparently he just wasn't a philanthropist then.
Well, he's been missing for like 5 years, so that must have been in there, maybe.
No, the whole regime there was like wise back. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he just wasn't rich then. The existence of this dude throws like a lot of what we learn about the Federation later into question.
Yeah, well, maybe he's not a Federation citizen or something like that. I don't know.
So Kirk verifies his identity with identity tapes and pictures and fingerprints, and he's definitely not who he says he is. Because we've verified his identity 6 ways from Sunday at this point.
Yes, everything checks out, so we have to be suspicious.
The medical exam shows some minor inconsistencies, but McCoy is sure that it's just a calibration error.
Well, alternatively, he might just have 4 kidneys. You never know.
They then bring in Carter's fiancée, Anne Nord, who, by a huge coincidence, has been serving on the Enterprise as a security officer.
Oh, well, that's convenient.
They do seem pleased to see each other after all of this time, but Carter says that he's changed because he survived a ship crash and he was nursed back to health on an alien planet. And also, we haven't seen each other in 5 years.
Yes, so it's going to be kind of impossible to just jump back into this. And also, I do not love you anymore. Go away.
Yeah, Anne's disappointed and confused, but Carter's like, nope, can't be married. Go, forget me. Bye-bye.
Well, I guess that means that Anne's, she can find love elsewhere then. Maybe there's a Vulcan that's technically not dating anyone right now on the ship.
Later, Kirk is filling out paperwork in his quarters. When Carter arrives to discuss his ship, Kirk is explaining how it's probably unsalvageable because it's so damaged when Carter crosses his arms and suddenly transforms into a large red tentacle alien.
Well, I guess that's just as you do if you're a red tentacle alien who's disguised as a person, I guess. So.
Yeah. He knocks out Kirk and tucks him lovingly into bed.
Oh no, bad touch.
Before transforming into Kirk himself and heading to the bridge.
No one will suspect that this person who's awkward about all that is not Kirk, even though we've had that plot multiple times on Star Trek before.
Yeah, you'd think that they would have procedures in place for this by now.
Yes.
Once there, Carter, as Kirk orders them to set course for Raytar 3, a planet inside of the neutral zone, even though, as Sulu reminds them, if they are found violating the neutral zone, the treaty allows the Romulans to confiscate their ship.
Well, I guess they probably updated the treaty since the last time we were kind of derping around in the neutral zone there. The Romulans are like, yeah, you got to surrender now because otherwise we'll just blow you up.
Yep.
There was no mention of a treaty, so maybe after that the Romulans are like, hey, okay, let's actually figure out some proper procedures here so that we could actually, I don't know, keep Kirk from just violating the neutral zone constantly. Come on.
Carter leaves the bridge, and Kirk wakes up in his quarters and heads back to the bridge, where he's very surprised to find that the ship has entered the neutral zone and that he apparently ordered it.
Well, maybe I was commanding the ship in my sleep again.
Kirk does a surprisingly sensible thing and reports immediately to sickbay to find out why he's blacking out and giving orders.
Yes. So I was like, well, everyone says I was here, so logically that must suggest that I was actually here.
Wow.
So maybe the thing is, maybe I am the asshole here.
Meanwhile, Carter finds McCoy in sickbay, knocks him out too, takes his form, but just then Anne arrives. She wants to get McCoy's advice, because for some reason he's the one people go to for advice on this ship.
Yeah, this is before the era of counselors and things like that, so it's like, you're someone who knows something about brains, right? You installed one, right? That one time, so you must have some lifeline in terms of talking about emotional issues, right?
She still loves Carter and doesn't know what to do. McCoy, who we remember is Carter, reiterates that Carter told her to forget about him and she should do so and go away.
Yes, he's a total jerkface. You don't want him. Yeah, just abandon all your love and dream.
Before things get any more awkward, Kirk and Spock arrive for Kirk's medical examination, but McCoy blows him off and tells him to come back later. Spock does ask about Carter's exam and implies that McCoy may have made an error, and McCoy goes, yeah, maybe, I'll double check that, which makes Kirk and Spock immediately suspicious.
Because McCoy is too egotistical to admit defeat.
Yeah, especially when Spock's the one who suggests he might have made a mistake.
Yes. It's like, wow, he's not a complete asshole to Spock. Something must be up.
So after a brief discussion in the hallway, they return to sickbay to find McCoy waking up on the laboratory floor.
McCoy, drunk again?
Kirk thinks there's something very odd about the exam room now and begins addressing one of the tables.
You'd think that it might be like McCoy who would notice this oddity first.
Nope. McCoy's like, why are you talking to a table? And Kirk goes, remember, you only have 2 beds. There are now 3.
Oh, I'm Dr. McCoy, who never admits a mistake. I'm going to ignore this because this was not a mistake on my part.
I'm a doctor, not a mathematician.
No.
Not the Count from Sesame Street.
Now give me 300 cc's of whatever.
So when the bed doesn't respond to any of Kirk's questioning, he threatens to pour acid on it, which does get him to transform into something that Spock identifies as a Vindorian.
Oh, well, it's convenient that Spock knows what these guys are, especially since we find out later that they are like super isolated and everyone kind of tries to avoid them.
Yeah, they're apparently a quarantined race of shapeshifters that lie and deceit as a way of life, so the Federation just goes, you stay on your planet over there, and we will pretend you don't exist.
Yep.
Carter then attacks them all and flees.
Oh no, more bad touch.
Spock sends out an intruder alert, and Anne is the one who finds Carter, now looking like Carter, in a corridor, but she can't bring herself to shoot him, even with stun, I guess.
Yes.
This, I can't bring myself to shoot someone story, really doesn't work when you have super reliable, non-lethal weapons.
Indeed, but, well, maybe she's not a very good security officer. Alternatively, all the security officers only have phases that are set to kill.
I heard there was a way to make this stun, but I've never been able to get it to go. Whoop-de-doop-de-doo. My nails are just too long to fiddle with these tiny knobs.
Star Trek, get better.
Kirk shows up to tell her that the real Carter is probably dead. Sure. They are then interrupted by the arrival of 2 Romulan battlecruisers.
Dang it, are they alien impersonators too?
Maybe. They're showing up in Klingon ships again.
Oh, they most certainly are then.
Well, this is just interesting. This is the second time that the Romulans have shown up in what is classically, for anyone who's watched Star Trek after original series, a Klingon ship, but these ships were originally designed for Romulans, but in Star Trek 3, A Search for Spock, they, at the last minute in the script, changed the main villains from Romulans to Klingons, but they didn't have time to make new ship models.
Oh, it's you already got everything built, let's just keep going with this, and no one will care.
Yeah, so because of Star Trek 3, that design became the iconic Klingon ship that we now know from Next Generation.
Though I should also note that they do have sort of Romulan symbols on the bits of the ship there, so at least it's kind of on theme there.
Yes, that they do. The Romulans are here to confiscate the Enterprise, as they have a right to do according to the treaty with the Federation. Kirk uses the old, okay, let me prepare my crew gambit that any idiot should know that means they're about to be shot.
Yes. Though surprisingly, Kirk doesn't shoot them. At least not right away.
He and Spock think it's a little bit suspicious that the Romulans were here waiting for them. If they knew Carter was on board and was going to lure them into the neutral zone or something.
Yes, mighty suspicious that while the Enterprise is patrolling, that the Romulans wouldn't be also patrolling?
Kirk hails them again because he's not going to surrender, because if the Romulans did in fact lure them into the zone, this is a violation of the treaty. But of course the Romulans know that they don't have any way to prove this and threaten to take the ship by force.
So we get to confiscate your guys' ships instead. No, we're gonna beat you up.
Unfortunately for the Enterprise, around that time, Carter has now taken the form of a random crewman and is disarming the deflector.
Now, what if this wasn't just him taking over the role of a random crewman, but there was actually a saboteur on board?
Yeah, it could be both, I suppose. He knocks out Scotty. The Enterprise just has problems.
Yes.
Back on the bridge, they notice the lack of shields. And also the shuttle bay door is opening, probably because Carter's trying to escape. They do manage to shut it, but, it's going to take hours and hours and hours to repair their deflector shield to get into any shape to fight.
So they're kind of boned here, it looks like.
Meanwhile, Anne has sort of randomly come across Carter again.
Well, she probably heard about the shuttle bay, situation there. And, so it's like, oh, he's not going to be able to escape that way. I can maybe sort of intercept him as he's trying to flee for maybe going to the transporter room or something.
This time, though, she is a bit more willing to threaten him, but takes some time to ask questions. Carter explains that the real Carter did, in fact, crash land on his planet, that he took care of him for almost a year before he finally died, and by taking his shape, his species basically takes on some of the personality and memories and emotions of the person they're impersonating, and the longer they do it, the more of them they get.
So that's a little awkward. You're basically cloning somebody whenever you do this.
Sort of, yeah. It's weird.
Yeah. Also, it's magical.
So he still loves Anne, but then he changes into true tentacle form and goes, "Could you ever love me like this?" And before Anne can decide whether or not she's into hentai, Kirk shows up.
And don't answer that question. This is a children's show.
Kirk's about to take Carter into custody, but then they're attacked and everyone falls over and Carter runs away.
Oh, we're really bad at this capturing random people running around on our ship thing, aren't we?
That they are. One dude can just run around the ship as long as they like.
Yes.
Back on the bridge, the Romulans are threatening to destroy the ship. And without any shields, the Enterprise is a sitting duck, or clay pigeon, as they say.
Yes.
I've never heard someone use that before, but sure. I mean, they're not moving as fast.
Maybe they could try to outrun them or something like that.
Yeah.
And then get shot at, but
But just then, one of the deflectors comes back online, allowing Kirk to order that they fire phasers and photons, disabling one of the Romulan ships, and the other one promptly leaves because they proudly believe they found the spy and the gig's up.
Now, that was convenient. Good work, Scotty. You are the most competent man on the ship again.
Yeah, except Scotty didn't repair anything, because he said it would take hours, and it's going to.
Also, Scotty, why are you just hanging out on the bridge? I thought you were supposed to be repairing something.
According to Spock, if Carter can become a table, then there's no reason he can't become a deflector shield.
Okay, then.
If you can become a wrench, you can become a ball. Carter enters in his tentacle form and apologizes for putting them through all this trouble, and explains that on his planet he's a non-producer of the lowest class and that the Romulans offered him a way to be of value to society, but spending too much time as Carter has made him care about people too much to let the Romulans just take the ship.
So let me get this straight. So you're part of this evil plan because you are basically on your planet the loser of all your people.
Yep.
And the Romulans trusted you, the guy who's, I guess, I'm assuming guy, of course, that is considered inept and incapable compared to everyone else he has ever met.
Apparently.
I don't think the Romulans made a good decision here, to be honest.
Kirk says he understands, but that Carter's still going to have to stand trial, but he will report on how Carter saved the ship, and that will probably be counted in his favor. Anne requests that she be allowed to take on Carter's guard duty, because I guess she's mulling over this whole tentacle idea.
Yes. Though I guess as far as like a security standpoint, this is a terrible idea, because she's kind of emotionally invested in one of his forms.
Yeah, it's an awful idea. Yes. Also, they're wandering off. It's like, so you got are you getting the fortune, Mr. Billionaire?
Yep. So, are you still super rich? I kind of like that. You can just go in and say, yeah, I am actually Mr. Carter there, and just give me all my money, and I'll buy my way out of prison.
So Spock and McCoy both express gratitude that the alien didn't impersonate the other one for too long, because having more than one of them around would be too much for them to handle.
Doo-doo-doo. Goofy music.
Yep. The end.
The end! So, we got a little tale of intrigue and impersonation and tentacles everywhere.
I found this one pretty interesting, generally, because you don't as often get this, like, the shapeshifter guy just developed such a soft spot for the people that he's impersonating. He's like, you know what? I like living as a human, and I care about you.
Yeah, usually especially not just in Star Trek, but in science fiction in general, the person who is doing the impersonating, is like, haha, I am able to manipulate and pull the wool over everyone, and the kind of mustache twirling to a certain degree, but also especially when they're as their alternative forms sort of depicted as being very unhuman like. Then they are, they tend to be more prone to being just so different from their thinking that they can't understand the things that they're impersonating. This shows up a few times in Star Trek, most notably with the Founders in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, this guy is like, well, it's basically the alien version of walk a mile in your shoes. Like, yes. I turn into people. That makes me more like people. I like it. It's kind of an anamorph situation. And spend too much time as a person and you're going to become an eagle.
Though there was the time those aliens, those also Eldritch beasts from beyond, took the Enterprise over and were turning people to cubes. That was sort of a suddenly they have human failings, but they're still kind of like jerk faces. So we can make use of some of that, but not appeals to emotion.
Yeah, they got tempted by the flesh.
Yes.
This guy got tempted by the niceness, maybe. I couldn't find anything specific, but it did sort of remind me of this idea. This is the 70s by now, so we've got a 60s and 70s Cold War thing of the spy who comes over and sees how amazing America is and wants to stay in our, capitalist utopia.
That's, people in Romania watching Dallas and going, maybe this isn't so bad.
That's just mild speculation on my part. But I did find it interesting that he's like a billionaire. And maybe, I think they're implying that because he's a philanthropist, he cares about people a lot, and that caring is what, like, swayed Mr. Alien. But, billionaire philanthropist is kind of an interesting choice.
No, it's also maybe what was convenient. Because he's not necessarily lying about meeting the original dude there and trying to nurse him back to health. Because that could have very much happened, and that's how he got so able to sort of duplicate this guy, which probably explains why the Romulans chose him out of everyone on his planet to go on this mission.
Oh yeah, probably. I was just thinking narratively, it's interesting that they went with like, oh, of course, billionaire philanthropist guy. I guess because everyone would know him and they, for some reason, trust him. Even though, the existence of this person just suggests so many societal failings.
Yes.
Like, the existence of an ultra-billionaire to begin with is just like, no one becomes rich without exploiting a lot of people down the chain. Especially that rich. He's made multiple fortunes off of shipping empires and mining and things.
Well, maybe to make all the humans of the Federation happy, he was only exploiting aliens.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh dear.
Because then it's racist, too.
Yeah. Dang it.
Then also, of course, went to the philanthropist thing, which is like, now this guy has so much wealth that he has to swoop in to save entire planets, which is like something the government should definitely be handling.
Yes. Though there is several examples throughout Star Trek, and even up through TNG eras, where it was the Federation just kind of fails completely to like help out one of their own planets, and it's kind of head scratching.
Yeah.
So maybe for all the Federation's ideals and things like that, they're really bad at this one thing.
I mean, we can't really judge. Federation ideals do not exist until we get to the movies.
Yes.
So at this point, we have a loose idea of a universe that sometimes exists outside the ship and sometimes doesn't.
Kind of is a hodgepodge of collected items that don't fit well together, but are just kind of like, well, people in the 60s and 70s are going to assume that the world outside the ship kind of works like this, so we'll just roll with it, you know. We're not going to do too much world building there.
They did have the... I didn't love the implication that by this time when you have like all these aliens and catwomen on the bridge and all this stuff, that someone's so hung up on their fiance that they're still like pining over them after 5 years and haven't moved on at all. It's like, oh my god, finally you're back and I can live again after 5 years of you being presumed dead. And well, then maybe that the person would have a hang up about them being an alien.
Yeah. Well, you know, for Anne there it might be that, you know, she said yes to his proposal because she's like super much like a fangirl of him. And so, you know, it's never going to say die when it comes to your obsession with your celebrity crush or something like that.
That's worse.
Yeah.
You made it worse.
Yeah. But it kind of explained things, and yeah.
What did you have to talk about? This episode was too simple and doesn't really go in for much except for some minor political intrigue.
Well, there is the whole celebrity thing.
Oh, that is true.
It has become like a thing in the, you know, especially in the U.S., but it's also been a thing throughout human history to certain extents.
Weird freaking rich guy celebrities.
Yes. You know, just the other day there was that meme about, you know, the whole GameStop stuff there, and you know, someone's looking, Gimli looking over to Legolas saying, you know, I never thought I'd be doing this with a Redditor, and the Redditor looking back, which is of course Legolas saying, you know, it's like Daddy Elon's going to take us all to Mars, and of course Gimli's like, what the hell? What?
Sure.
Yeah, it's very much in that same vibe there. That there is this propensity in human societies for some fraction of the people to get super obsessed with people that have wealth, that have fame, that have various power of any sort, or at least the perception of it, and being weirdly devoted to them without that person having ever done anything good or bad to them, and sometimes even bad things. And it's a little weird.
I sometimes wonder if we have... So there's a very pervasive idea in modern Western societies that everything's fine. Everything's working as should. The main issue is who's in charge.
Yep.
The only thing that we really need to do is find the correct person to follow and then do what they say, and then everything's going to turn out fine. And the celebrity sort of thing, especially like rich, powerful celebrities, is that kind of like, I've chosen my person to follow. And if, you know, everyone would just come along with me on that, the world would be perfect and everything would be great. It gives you an interesting sense of control without actually having to be in control of anything, which is scary.
Yeah. It's basically you've delegated all that responsibility onto someone who actually has no direct control over you.
Yes.
Yes.
Though they do have some amount of direct control because of the way we structured our society to let people with money have too much control over whatever they want.
But, you know, even assuming that wasn't the case, it would still probably be a dynamic of this sort of affecting our civilization just in general.
I mean, it's difficult to know. We don't have any good historical examples, even though these places have existed, of more leaderless, less hierarchical societies. That's definitely been something that has existed and has popped up a lot of times throughout history. It's just something that we in the modern world choose to ignore for the convenience of not having to justify why things are like this now.
Yes, and also it goes against the great man theory of history, which is,
yes,
which is forbidden in a lot of corners. So,
which is like, this is a very modernist take on it. A lot of people kind of see, like you said, Elon Musk as the modern great man who is just going to fix all of our problems with space magic.
Never mind any of the details or how he's going to do that or why he has a bunch of money in the first place. Some sort of, South African diamond mine with slavery, But, he's clearly a virtuous person because he is someone I know that exists with money and power. So,
Though interestingly, they don't talk about this guy like he's got any sort of power beyond being a philanthropist, which I suppose this could be the transitional period of Star Trek history where we're moving into deifying philanthropy itself, where you actually do care about people and you're not just using it as a way to make yourself feel better about exploiting millions. Or for some sort of PR/tax break.
Yeah, as opposed to the current habits now, where it's like, yes, we gave this many millions of dollars to these charities, and thus we pay this many $1 million exactly less in taxes. Oh my, it's funny how that works out. But I guess as far as the sort of a parasocial sort of relationship that people develop with well-off individuals has kind of taken on different forms, has been used and abused in a number of different ways throughout history. You go back to the ancient times and very much like being deified. Yes, this person is a living god, and all that sort of like the hero worship sort of cults and things like that. During the early rise of fascism, there was sort of like very much we got a cult of personality going on here, and everyone has to love the dear leader, otherwise you are against the state because they are the state. Dun dun dun. And so I guess it's preferable if this is going to be a thing that it's people just kind of going gaga over the Beatles or something like that. But it's still kind of something that can be easily abused if if certain people that are eager to use and abuse this sort of relationship gain power and are willing to use it in order to gain more power and eventually take over. So be careful about celebrities, guys. They be dangerous.
You get into a weird place with celebrity. It's something that people are still currently studying. But you get in this odd like double thing right now. We are coming back to it. You would have people who were like well known because they had power, and it was kind of that. Like they were well known because they'd gained power or notoriety in a certain segment. Like say the example that's jumping to mind is like Julius Caesar in ancient Rome. Became a famous general by winning a bunch of strategic victories, then used that popularity to take over the government, and then became famous because he'd taken over the government.
So I'm extra famous now. Hooray! Yes, make me super dude.
Right now, we have this sort of... you still get power, but the reason that you have celebrity is not because you have the power. Your sort of recognizableness is useful and can be parlayed into our current system through like brand deals and associations and things. So being popular and likable is itself something that's sellable, which we're seeing a bit more now with the sort of I don't quite know what to call it. It's sort of the influencer culture, but it's more of like I want to say like amateur celebrity. Like someone who gained notoriety on social media and got enough followers that they became useful to corporate interests.
So Justin Bieber.
Yeah, basically. Though he later transitioned into other celebrity because of the music industry thing, which props up people for its own corporate interests. But you still wind up with people like popular YouTubers and people who have lots of Instagram followers who haven't launched out into other areas, but they have enough wide range of audience with their own like smaller subset of people that they're still useful to the wider corporate interests as a recognizable face to sort of humanize whatever it is they're trying to sell.
Indeed. So are we going to get any sponsors anytime soon, you think?
Oh, I doubt it. Maybe a Patreon. I'm way too Marxist for this.
So yeah, I guess, as being folks that are sort of well aware of these sort of dynamics, to a certain degree, we're kind of cautious about trying to abuse them. Though if we ever do like call us out, though, guys. So just, because if we come with jerk faces, yeah.
I'm under no illusions that I'm good enough at social media to ever have this problem.
I also like to promote lots of other people sometimes when I, sort of like remember to. And so it's sort of like, if I'm going to be promoting something, I want to be promoting people that are also kind of in a position that they don't have the corporate backing, and thus their entire livelihood is sort of dependent on just sort of word of mouth stuff. And so that they might eventually get to that point, maybe, or this will just make sure that they're more likely to survive in the long term. And so, yeah, I'm not necessarily going to be good for brands, or as my friend Hago likes to say, brands.
But you can kind of break down modern celebrity into this weird little thread of kind of usefulness, because you even see it. There's some people who, like, celebrities who've fallen out of the spotlight because they've become too controversial or unpopular. They are still wealthy and they still have a certain amount of power from their old celebrity or from the amount of money that they made, like, being a celebrity. But you don't see them pop up as much because they're unpopular enough that brands and things no longer find them useful to use promotionally. So even if they are still working, and even if they are still in like movies or TV or whatever it is they're famous for, they're not as pushed as much because they're no longer as useful as sort of the friendly face or even neutral face of something. So we've gotten to this interesting point where celebrity has sort of been folded into capitalism in a way where people just become another marketing tool.
Yeah, you become the product. You become the advertisement. You become the spokesperson, directly or indirectly.
So there's my anti-capitalist rant for the day. I have to get one in every day or I get a migraine. Yeah.
Hooray! So no migraine for Gepwin today. So I guess the other things I kind of pulling it back around to the philanthropy sort of thing is that some of the earliest celebrities in the United States kind of became such because they were philanthropists. You got your Rockefellers, your Carnegies, you got your Fords as well. They giving a bunch of money to to build libraries or sort of whatevers, and starting foundations to go help feed help increase farm productivity in a bunch of places and make sure people aren't starving as badly in in other parts of the world. And it's like, oh, and people start hearing about these stories like, oh, this person must be a very good person, and thus I am going to make note of them and have them as part of my sort of cultural zeitgeist here because they have been doing these things, and because they've been doing these things, the word has been getting out. And so it's sort of a very early sort of form of celebrity here because it wasn't necessarily being exploited in the same way, but also these folks were capitalists who were making a lot of money doing whatever they were doing. Ford is still a Ford Motor Company. It still exists here. So having a big, a philanthropy organization sort of associated with that name is good for business because, like, yes, we are the good guys here, and some of our money is going to go to save the world here. So if you buy our cars, you're not just buying yourself a car, but you're maybe saving a life, man.
Well, a lot of those particular philanthropist celebrities, Rockefeller, Carnegie, came from our last big era of monopoly capitalism.
It's like, well, I've won, so what now?
And some of them got all of the wealth and power, and then were like, oh, well, something is actually wrong with the world. I'm going to go I'm going to give my money to someone. Or, I mean, Ford just gave his money to Nazis.
Yeah. Well,
so there's that.
That's one of the other things that Ford would rather let's not think about when we're they're thinking about their name. But so that you don't hear about that one very often.
But the the existence of philanthropy itself is a failure of your societal system.
Mm-hmm. It means that there's a need that is not being met by how things are set up presently.
Yes, you have an inequity in resources that means one person has extra resources and they have to choose to give them to someone with less resources. But one, that's not a good way to even things out, even though people would argue that, like, well, if you have extra resources, it's your right to give them to whoever you choose. And in our system, that is true. But one, that's never going to be distributed equitably just because of logistical reasons. Aside from like each individual then having to decide who they think is worthy of help and all these other things. But also, it's just more responsibility than a single person should have.
Yes.
It should not be the responsibility of any individual to help the society overall. The society should be set up in such a way where everyone is helping everyone else so that each person's amount of help is actually relatively low.
Yeah, it's, we all contribute something so that we are able to collectively get stuff done. And so it's not just on one person's shoulders.
Which is this double-edged sword that you get with the, like, great man thing. Like, it's this nice idea. I can see the appeal. You just have, like the one person who can just go and get stuff done, and you don't have the governmental roadblocks, and you don't have to worry about reaching consensus or majority or any of these other things that slow the processes down, and it looks like you're accomplishing a lot. But then you just put so much on one individual that they just can't accomplish it.
So you get measures that might help some, but don't necessarily go all the way, or to where they need to be, or are done effectively, or last to the long run, or a bunch of other sort of things that can go horribly wrong here.
Which, like, I can somewhat understand the place that we're in right now. We have such massive wealth inequality, and I am sure someone like Bill Gates legitimately wants to help people and legitimately believes that he's doing a good job. But it's just too much for even one person with that many resources to do, and he feels put upon and hated because people are criticizing what he's doing, which makes him less able to help anyone.
And there is also the whole structural thing in our current society where even people that are trying to become philanthropists find themselves in a weird position where they're making a lot more money than they're able to give away.
That too. Also, you run into an issue where, like, if someone, like, all these people are still profiting off of their old businesses, even if they're retired. Like Bill Gates still profits off Microsoft stock, dividends, all that junk. Helping too many people breaks this capitalist system in such a way that it would stop making them money. And the current way that we have things set up, if you have to have a billionaire philanthropist to help, they have to be making money in order to help people. So if they start doing something that makes them less money, it's this cycle where they see it as something that's going to prevent them from helping more people. So you get into this bad catch-22 thing where if you help too many people, your ability to help people becomes reduced because it breaks the system that's making you the money that lets you help people.
Yeah, so it's like, well, if I want to help people, then I have to defend capitalism. That kind of sucks.
Yeah, like you can see it now in the way that there's been years-long debates over giving people enough stimulus checks to live during the pandemic without having to go out and put themselves in danger to work. They have blatantly said, if you let people live without having to work in an exploitive system, they will not want to go back into the exploitive system, and we cannot have that.
Maybe we can have that.
We can. There's no particular reason we can't. We've just decided that that's how it's going to work.
And so we continue in the same little game over and over again, alas.
I heard this interesting interview the other day where they were talking about minimum wage increase versus universal basic income. And the person said, that, yes, universal basic income would probably solve more problems than minimum wage increase would. But in America, we've decided that people have to work to live. Therefore, the only thing we're actually going to get passed is minimum wage increase.
Which is better, but not what it could be or what it should be.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day. It's ridiculous. Like, we have these things in place that we treat like have always been there and are some sort of unchangeable force of nature, but they're just not. If you actually just say, maybe if someone either can't work or for whatever personal reason chooses not to work, that shouldn't mean that they starve to death. Mm-hmm. That makes quite a bit of sense if you just say it that way, but people have all this layer and layer of stuff on top of it to kind of obfuscate that that's what we're doing. We've said that it's okay to let someone starve to death if they don't work. But there's no particular reason that that has to happen, especially someone who's not directly involved in the process of producing food.
So I'm reminded of the BS Jobs conversation I think we had a while back, where jobs that are made just so that someone can have a job, they don't actually do anything.
Yes, it's like a criticism. What's weird is it's often a criticism of unions that they have minimum employer policies to keep it, minimum employment policies to keep everyone working. But this is a phenomenon that just happens in corporate America. Like, job creation is such a big thing. You will have redundant positions that literally do nothing. Someone who writes a report on someone else who's writing a report on someone else who's writing a report.
So this whole sort of stack of nonsense that doesn't actually help anyone or do anything other than move some money around.
And what's particularly interesting is people who have reported on this phenomenon, it makes people depressed. And the theory behind the system is you should just be happy to do anything as long as you get paid for it and can live. But people want to feel like they are contributing to something. So, like, the very fact that doing a nothing job that contributes to nothing, even though you are getting paid for it, does not make someone feel happy and fulfilled, disproves this notion that the only way to get someone to do something is to give them is to pay them for it and have a price incentive. Or it's barely an incentive. Like, you do have this idea of incentive where if you do all the right things and work hard enough and do all these great things, you will become the billionaire and get all the wealth and power and whatever. But the actual thing that we're doing here is saying if you do not do this and play along with the system, you will starve to death.
Yeah, so it's more of a threat as opposed to an incentive.
Yes.
Maybe people don't like living under constant threat constantly. Just seems like a bad way to live where you're kind of always this close from, starvation, death, injury, being homeless, all that stuff.
They don't. It puts a massive amount of stress on people, but I get to sit here and talk about this because my family's been solidly in the middle class for 3 generations. And so I get to have time to sit here and think about it and talk about it and critique the system because I don't have to spend literally all of my time trying to survive, which is the way that we treat most people.
And there's sort of a similar background here. And it's like, wow, just going back, a couple generations in my own family, it's like, it's sort of middle class for the time, sort of generic farmer sort of folks there. And then just kind of continues that. And that's kind of lucky on my part. But, I look to my neighbors, look to my friends, and some of them have very different sort of backgrounds and sort of that experience in, interacting with other folks is like, wow, I kind of want to do the right thing, but maybe I'm running into that philanthropist sort of dynamic again. But then I say, no, this is bullshit. Let's actually change the system.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was having this discussion with someone the other day. Even this is a giant system. No individual is going to be able to change it, but you can admit that it's wrong. And then when the time comes when it can change, you won't be in the way.
It's like, oh yeah, so it is wrong. And so you are some folks that are trying to change it and you've done the footwork in order to do that. I can help or get out of the way. So, I'm going to pick one of those 2 options because I know the system's all worked up. So yeah, down with capitalism?
Yeah, I think that's where we got to. There's also shape-shifting aliens are fun.
Yes. I didn't have any thing really to talk about on that front there, other than they're kind of fun, and more props to the show for pushing the getting out of the rubber forehead alien sort of situation, which is dominated a lot of Star Trek. So.
That is true. This is a cool alien, and I will give this episode some props because this is, I guess, is where the animation budget went. This thing moved. It had like expression. The way that it interacted with the crew, even when attacking them, it sort of had this like, I'm going to knock you out, but then gently lay you down on the floor because I don't actually want to hurt you. Yes. Like you could tell the alien's personality and motivations from the way it was animated, which is unheard of for this show.
Yes. So everyone else is still kind of walking around like robots, while this tentacle alien's like, all right, I'm going to lightly touch you here, and you're falling over. I'm going to catch you. Okay. Yeah. So that's all I had.
Yeah. Okay. We went on a 20-minute rant about capitalism. So I think now it's time for the galaxy's favorite game show. Woo!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the game show parts of the show. I hope everyone's having a fantastic time right now. I know I am. So let's tally up some points here and start handing out prizes. I hope everyone's ready. Our first prize is the Fanboy Prize, which goes to Kirk and Company for kind of doing this over Carter Winston. What do they win, Gepwin?
They win fake autograph books where they can sell them on space eBay, because they got this guy who can just he can do Carter Winston photographs. He can do Kirk photographs. Like, he could go take over for Shatner at conventions. They've got the ultimate, the merchandising fan machine here, and they should take advantage of it.
That is quite true. So they're going to be, even if they don't have access to Carter Winston's original fortune, they're still going to be able to recreate it if they so wish. Whoa! Our second prize is the Fooled You Prize, which goes to the Vandorian for playing Carter Winston and others just so well. What does it win, Gepwin?
He doesn't win anything because he just, he's Carter Winston, the richest man in the universe now, and he's just got it. He's fine.
Yeah,
because he's fooled us so good.
Yeah, he can go into the bank and recreate his signature perfectly. They'll never know the difference, unless Kirk blaps. But Kirk's got to have that big, autograph deal and all that, so he'll be good to go, I think. Our third and final prize is the Romulans Games Prize, which goes to the Romulans for trying to rules-lawyer themselves a captured Enterprise. What do they win instead, Gepwin?
The Romulans win, getting their other ship captured, because now they're in violation of the treaty. I guess Kirk didn't want it, but either this treaty goes only one way, or I don't think this treaty is very good.
No, it's not entirely clear what the actual letter of the law says, but maybe after the episode they went back and captured that guy or that ship there. Who knows? That's all I got, Gepwin. So feel free to take us away. Our contestants here, they keep. I'm a little confused here. I thought we had 4 McCoys here suddenly. I'm a little lost here, Gepwin. Save me.
Well, that's a scary thought. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here on the Galaxy's Favorite Game Show. Woo! Next episode.
Infinite Vulcan.
Yeah. The Infinite Vulcan.
So Spock gets huge and large.
The only thing I know about this is that it's supposed to be the worst of the animated series episodes, which, from what we've seen so far, is probably saying something.
I've seen pieces of it, but I've not seen the entirety of it myself before, so I'll be kind of going into this a little cold, but I have heard enough that it's not going to be completely cold.
I'm seeing the words eugenics wars in the description. Okay. was written by Walter Koenig.
Yes. So Chekhov has not appeared in the animated series here at all. Not even like a stand-in. So Walter Koenig came back for this.
And wrote an episode.
Yes. That everyone hates.
Poor guy.
Well, it's just, getting revenge. Sometimes, you have to go do what you can,
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. We'll see. Poor guy. The only thing anyone knows about him is that horrible accent from the movies. So he was just trying to become a writer.
Oh, he did. Walter Koenig does show up in Babylon 5 as Bester, the Psychop, who is one of the most interesting bad guys on the show by far. He also shows up in a movie called Boontrap, which is hilariously bad, but
Yeah, it sounds it. Just based on that name.
So maybe we can cover that at some point in the future. It's like from the 80s.
Well, there's one. Found the writing process of the Infinite Vulcan unbearable due to interference from Roddenberry.
Well, that seems pretty common, actually, right for Star Trek.
Yep. Well, we'll find out what's going on with Mega Spock next time on Watchers of Tomorrow.
Next time on Watchers of Tomorrow, Chekhov's Revenge! You have been listening to Watchers of Tomorrow, a podcast on science fiction media. Find and follow Watchers of Tomorrow on Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Spreader, Digital Podcast, and perhaps many more to come. If you enjoy our podcast, make sure to subscribe for more. And where possible, make sure to rate your experience or leave us a review. You may find Gepwin on youtube.com/Gepwin and Twitter @Gepwin. You may find me, Dr. Isix, on youtube.com/Dr. Isix and Twitter @IsixLP. Music is Waveform and Mori's Principle, both by DRKRN. You can also check out the Watchers of Tomorrow Discord channel. Make sure to share the experience with your friends, family, enemies, and alien overlords. If you feel you are suffering from transporter syndrome, please be aware that the next time you step off the transporter, that you, that is now, no longer exists.